All right, hey everybody. Where's my little preamble thing? Um, welcome to the finance committee meeting on the hell's today's date? October 16th, 2024. There's Mr. Jenkins. We got the whole crew tonight, except for Chris. Chris can't make it, he said. Oh, God. We have on the docket tonight a few minor items. We do have one meeting minute that I believe I sent around ahead of time. There's one more that I am working on that I'm going to bring to our next meeting, which will probably be directly before our special town meeting, just based on the timelines and the print options that we have. We've talked about this at length. As of right now, though, we are going through our special town meeting warrant articles for said special town meeting on November 18th. Looking through them, this could be a relatively, it looks like a lighter list than it has been in the past, right? There's not 35 of them. Some of them are relatively self-explanatory in some ways. Connor, is anyone from planning joining for the zoning stuff?
Yes, Director Danielson is in another meeting,
Okay.
and they are trying to wrap that up. I can certainly pinch hit if she is not available by the time you make it to those articles. Those are at the end, though. So
They're at the end. Yeah. So no big deal. So we'll plan ahead for that. But effectively, we have at least 1.5-ish that are sort of placeholders. There might be some dollars for the one that's the half. But we're going to go through it as usual and break down our entire voting structure as per usual as well. So welcome everyone. Let me pull up my list information and we'll get going. If I can find the thing. There we go. All right, so in keeping with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendees shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. Let's go down and do a voice vote. Let me make sure I have everyone captured. Oh, did you have something, Connor?
you are already reading the procedures. I was just going to, it's been a while since I was on Zoom.
Here we go. So let's go down. I have my list in no uncertain order. We're going to do our typical voice vote to be in session. DiNardo.
DiNardo is present.
DiNapoli.
DiNapoli present.
Olson.
Olson present.
Lamb.
Lamb is here.
Petro.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Jenkins.
Jenkins is present.
Diaz.
Present.
And I am present. Did I miss anyone? That's everybody, right? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Hey, welcome to the meeting. Here we go. So to kick off, we are starting off with, as I said, warrant articles for deliberation and vote. We are going to go right down the list. Article 1, transfer to stabilization fund. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or appropriate by transfer from available funds a sum of money to be placed into the stabilization fund or take any other action relative thereto. This article moves approximately 25% of available free cash to the stabilization fund in accordance with the town's financial management guidelines and the ongoing goal to build reserves. What's the only question I have, if anyone has any comments from the administrator side, but the only question I have is, do we have that total as of yet? And what is that total?
We don't. We're working on it. It's in the area of 2 million, which is less than what we've seen in recent years, which is anticipated.
Right.
Just as a reminder, that bumped up quite a bit during COVID due to expense cuts on one side and revenue improvements, both in local receipts, but also unspent funds due to available federal funds. And so it's returning back closer to the pre-COVID mean, which was in the area of 2 million.
Now, as a procedural question, this doesn't typically have a dollar amount attached to the actual article, so we could vote to recommend without that final number, correct? We've done it in the past, as far as I remember.
That's correct, and I would request the committee do so if you're willing. We'll have to articulate that in the finance plan and have it in the motion, but At this point, we usually don't have the exact dollar amount.
Right. Does anyone else have any questions on number one?
Connor, is this an account, a stabilization account, and is there a balance?
Yes, it's a special stabilization fund that the town maintains. The balance right now is $6,218,000, which is down
Make a
from its
motion.
peak of just shy of 7 million before the annual town meeting where we started dipping into these funds.
Yeah. I make a motion to approve.
Do we-
Transfer.
Second to Petro.
Knew it was you. Christina, you're off your game tonight.
I
DiNardo.
couldn't hit unmute fast enough.
DiNardo is a yes.
DiNapoli.
DiNapoli, yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Petro.
Petro, yes.
Thank you. Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Yes, yes.
And I am a yes. That is recommended. Article 2. Wendy. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Do we have any bills from a prior fiscal year that you need us to pay for you?
We do not at this time.
Okay. Skipping 2. 3. Article 3. Vote to amend the fiscal 2025 budget. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or appropriate by transfer from available funds a sum of money to amend the fire and rescue fiscal year 2025 departmental budget in the amount of $46,765 or take any other action relative thereto. The explanation is the fire department requires additional funds to pay the cost of accumulated vacation and sick leave as required by collective bargaining agreement for several retiring employees. Seems straightforward. Does anyone have any questions, or Connor, Wendy, etc.? Wendy probably on this one. Do you want to give a quick preamble on? Sounds like people are leaving, and thus we're paying them out.
That is true.
Nailed it.
We've had special articles for this before in the past. Sometimes the department is able to absorb them, but we do have some instances where we've got some people that are out, and we need that overtime and other funds to cover that. So we would ask to fund these buybacks now.
Thank you. I've been doing this for 7 years. I think I might finally have a handle on it.
If I could-
I do have a question, if that's okay. Thanks, Wendy, for the explanation. So my question is, are we funding the overtime, or are we funding the vacation and sick leave buyback?
This is the actual vacation and sick leave buyback. And one thing too that I want to mention is that the sick leave buyback portion is something that it's no longer applicable to like newer employees. These are employees that were long-term employees that were grandfathered under previous agreements.
Okay, and then my follow-up question is what is the process for retirement? And this is somewhat of a rhetorical question, but really, if someone is planning to retire, let's say this is October, so let's say by the end of the fiscal year, wouldn't they go through the process of pulling papers ahead of time, i.e. letting you know that they plan on retiring, or let's say if they don't do it by June, maybe they're planning to retire next December 25. Is that a number that could be factored into the budget? So for example, let's say I worked for Easton and I'm retiring in December of next year and I have 2 months of vacation, right? And then I have
Yes.
a month of sick time. What is that number? Can you do something with that information ahead of time?
We can sometimes, and sometimes we are able to factor that into the budget. It all depends on the kind of notice that we have. Sometimes we don't get the notification until either after town meeting or during the fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And if I could just add, it's becoming something that we're being honest, we are less and less in practice with, because there is a very, very small pool of employees who are eligible for this benefit at this point. The fire department, specifically anyone hired after 2001, is no longer eligible for this. So Just given the typical age of retirement for folks in that line of work, there's only a very small number of individuals that this is applicable to any longer. Other municipal unions started grandfathering this out in the 90s, so this is quite uncommon at this point.
Thank you. So in essence, you're saying that the vacation balances or accruals and the sick leave accruals, they're better managed, like employees are encouraged to take their vacations and not build it up, and sick leave, etc.
So vacation is still paid out when people leave. That's governed by each individual collective bargaining agreement. Sick leave buyback is one that creates for real financial liability for municipalities because that can accrue to such large amounts. Most municipal unions have standards that have safeguards for the community in place so that people you can't endlessly accrue and accumulate new vacation. Most unions have a use it or lose it policy by the end of the fiscal year. Some allow 1 or 2 weeks to carry over. But so vacation is not, that's the type of thing that is just kind of routinely handled in the budget. The supplemental requests are usually attributable to very large accruals of sick leave because sick leave does accrue up to a substantially higher cap. And so having that payback obligation is where that comes from. So a shrinking and soon eventually 0 of our workers would be entitled to sick leave buyback.
Okay.
And the vacation has mechanisms in place where there's a very constrained amount you are allowed to bring into any given fiscal year.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts on? Lost my page. Article 3.
Motion to recommend DePietro.
Second,
Do I-
DiNapoli.
There she is. DiNardo.
DiNardo is a yes.
DiNapoli.
DiNapoli, yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Yes.
Diaz.
Diaz is yes.
I am a yes. Article 3 is recommended. All right. Article 4, capital budget. This article addresses additional capital needs for fiscal year 2025 that were not funded at the annual town meeting in May. Does anyone want to, Wendy, I assume you'll do a preamble on this one?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Go for it.
So this has a couple of newer items. The first 2 items on the list, so you got 3 police vehicles, 204,667, cyclical computer replacements, 41,712. We typically do these in the fall after free cash is certified. We've kind of gotten onto that cycle. That was on last year's capital improvement plan, and we just opted to defer that until the fall. Couple of adjustments to the capital budget were voted last night by capital planning, and that was for the 3 things: the security system upgrades for 3 schools. This was originally in the 5-year plan as being broken out by several fiscal years. At that point, we were still in very preliminary stages of the project and having it designed and everything. So at this point, and Andrea can speak to this also, that's one of the reasons why she's here, is we've gotten some final estimates in, and we've looked at it both ways. We've looked at it, what if we do the whole project now, or we still do it in phases? It's become pretty apparent that it's most cost effective to do this as just one project and vote the money now so that we can award a contract once the project is bid. So this would take, and it's a lesser amount too, I want to add, because in the original capital plan, we were looking at $4.5 million in 26 and $4.5 million in fiscal 27. This request is for $6,005,000, but it is very, very likely going to be even less than that we're going to have to spend. Included in this total is just a fail-safe in the event that $400,000 of ESSER funding that the school department is planning on setting aside, it just needs final federal approval to get that done. It's pretty likely that that's gonna happen, but we just haven't received it yet, so just in case, we've increased the dollar amount. So otherwise, it would be, $5,605,000 for that project.
One question on that, just because you brought it up. Does that include contingencies and change order stuff? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. Go
And
ahead.
then we can get into that a little bit more with Andre. I just finished, well, the remaining items. So the next item is additional funds for a fire engine. That is relatively new. We had appropriated, we had an issue with a fire engine. There was an accident, we had insurance funds to replace it. And what happened was the money that we used, the chief was looking into options as to getting 2 smaller mini pumpers to just have greater mobility and be able to, get around town and respond to more calls. But they were running into issues with mechanical issues with these vehicles, and the vendor has agreed to take them back at the full cost and not charge us for the like the work that we've done on it, to take that like the lettering and other stuff off of that. And they're going to give us a full trade, and they're going to trade it in for a stock fire truck, basically what we probably would have gotten originally. But that cost is just an additional $39,973. We plan on taking a portion of the money to fund that from the $10,000 from the fire revolving account, and there was about another $11,000 that was left over in the insurance recovery account that we can put towards that additional appropriation. And then the last one was an ambulance replacement. The fire department had requested that we advance one of the ambulance replacements that was already on the capital plan to this fiscal year. And that will be covered by a combination of savings from another article. And we also got an additional Medicare cost recovery funds that we will also put towards this purchase. So it will be covered by, additional funds we got in, and savings from other ambulance appropriations. And what happened was, the reason that they're requesting this is initially they buy Horton ambulances, but they were having an issue with the vendor where they could not guarantee when the ambulance would be available, and they were looking at delivery times of 3 years plus, and they couldn't guarantee the date. So they found another supplier, and these ambulances are more like just kind of basic ambulances, and you're not paying for the Horton name. So they're less money, and they're going to be available sooner than the Horton. So they got a quote for the current appropriation that they have in place, and they got a good price for 2 of them at the cost of $383,150. And we had appropriated $480,000. So it is quite a bit of a savings. And so given the timing and the wear and tear on the ambulances that we have now, they're looking to advance this ambulance a little bit sooner, and that will help. Their most recent their newest ambulance is a 2021 ambulance, and they do have one that'll be coming in like February or March, but their frontline ambulance is already several years old. So we're looking to get the fleet back in action, so you can have 2 good frontline ambulances and then 2 in reserve. And that's it for the capital. I'll take any questions, or if we want to get into school security project, we can do that too.
I assume, I'm going to say this just because I've been in this position before. I assume, Andrea, there are definitely questions we cannot answer about this for obvious reasons. But having said that, if anyone has any capital and or limited security questions for either of these two, please feel free to raise your hand and jump in now.
Just curious on what the original plan cost would have been versus what you're looking for now.
Sure, and I just want to make sure I'm answering your question directly. When you say the original cost, do you mean what the project manager has provided as far as the multi-phase approach versus the
Yeah,
single-phase approach? Okay,
Exactly, yeah.
so the cost estimate that our project managers, SMMA, have provided, it's 11,212,000 and change, compared to a $9,637,000 cost. So overall, $1,575,000 is the cost differential going with one phase versus a 3-phase.
I have a question. Was some of this in the capital budget that we already did? So this is now just extra because we're consolidating it into 1 year?
Not necessarily. Yes and no. So as far as what was initially included, the 1.5 million was included in fiscal year 25 as part of the May annual town meeting. But as Director Nightingale had said, for fiscal year 26, there's $4.5 million included in the capital budget and 4.5 included in fiscal year 27. So we're taking basically that $9 million, consolidating it down to about a little over a $6 million ask. There were funds from other periods and other funding sources also considered for that bottom line total of the $6 million that we're asking for.
So you have 3 million somewhere else, right? Because you're asking for 6 now, the project costs 9, you've got 3 already reserved for this.
That is correct. So there's different combination. We had several annual town funding sources. So the 1.5 from fiscal year 25, there was a little over 1.9 for our annual town meeting for fiscal year 23. A couple of a combination for security improvements from prior annual town meetings. For security design, some entrance security improvements, and then also state earmark funds and our ESSER funds included. So a combination of town funding for available funds, borrowing, and third-party funding sources.
When will you find out about the ESSER funds? When is the federal government supposed to make that decision?
Yeah, so when we've been reaching out to DESE as often as we can, we just reached out again at the end of the week last week. They had hoped to find out by 9:30 from the federal government because that was a hard, fast deadline for a lot of different funding sources related to ARPA, ESSER, basically the COVID relief funds. So we'll continue following up with them. They have not given us a definitive timeline. They had expected to hear back around 9:30.
Let me ask, how often are these security systems upgraded?
I don't know what the typical useful life is of these and then how often we'd need to update them going forward, but I definitely can find out from our project managers what the recommended replacement schedule would be for these improvements.
If you could, that'd be great.
Are they improvements or are they just brand new security systems?
I believe brand new security systems, but some of that also from the construction phase is mirroring entrance improvements similar to what we have in Bland James. So it's a combination of security upgrades, but also just mirroring some of the entrance improvements.
Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong about getting into any kind of detailed design, which we can't do about a security system, but the idea here is a project to bring the remainder of the public school campus up to a similar security standard and posture to the new Bland James building.
That is correct.
Including interoperability of systems.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I appreciate the detail.
Same. Very, very good.
Motion to recommend the article to Petro.
Before DePietro cuts me off by
We're
literally
not
moving.
sure anymore. That's my cue.
No, but you're so, as much as you're late to join, you're just as eager to give the motion. No other questions for Wendy on the capital side before Mike cuts me off? Our new chair, Mike DePietro. All right, Mike, did you have something you wanted to share with the rest of the crowd a minute ago?
Motion to recommend the article to Petro.
Sure.
Second to Napoli.
Ah, I saw you, Robert. You're a second late. She got you again. DiNardo.
Yes.
DiNapoli.
To Napoli, yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
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 I'm a yes. She's the fastest gun in the West, Robert. You gotta get up early. I don't know what else to tell you.
This must be that delayed technology, you know?
Just get a faster Wi-Fi link. It's just, there's a bunch of extenuating factors here.
This is sad that this is our excitement.
Look, we are the fun committee. Don't ruin it for me, all right? Article 5. Dedication of Swifts Park for park and recreation purposes, acceptance of Massachusetts parkland acquisitions and renovations for communities park grant and appropriation of grant and gift funds. By way of, I'm not going to read the whole thing. By way of explanation, at town meeting on May 20th, the town voted to appropriate $698,000 in CPA funds for the reconstruction of Swift Park to serve as a memorial to lives lost and the first responders who selflessly served the community during the 1918 influenza pandemic and COVID-19 pandemic. Total project cost was estimated at $834,000, with the remainder to be covered through grants and fundraising. Subsequently, the town applied for and was awarded a $100,000 state park grant to support the project. The state requires appropriations totaling the full amount of the project, in addition to acceptance and formal dedication of the park. In order to receive the grant. As such, the town must approve this article to receive the grant. Any questions, thoughts, any comments, Connor, on this one?
Could I just ask, Director Danielson is here in the chat. Could she get in? She has, to her credit, been willing to do the work on getting that grant. So I don't know if she has anything she'd like to add. I will just say, while she's getting moved in, that this does not change the total local spend on this. This is a requirement of that state grant that we up the local appropriation number to match the donated funds we have on hand and their anticipated $100,000 grant. We cannot receive the grant unless this is approved.
Thank you for that color. Stephanie, sorry, I didn't see you raise your hand. Do you want to add anything to Article 5?
Connor covered it. I don't really have anything more to add other than that this has really helped motivate and spark the ongoing fundraising that the committee is undertaking.
Thank you.
Getting the grant, it's kind of revitalized.
Right.
How much has the committee fund raised so far?
They have raised around $35,000, which includes a match, a $25,000 match grant.
Any other questions?
Motion to recommend the article, DePietro.
Second, DiNapoli.
Alrighty. DiNardo.
Yes. Sorry, I don't want to hear you. You don't want to hear me coughing. I'm a yes.
You, actually. That's in the meeting minutes. DiNapoli.
DiNapoli, yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Diaz is yes.
I am a yes. Alrighty. Stephanie, welcome. Let me give you the official welcome.
Thank
Now
you.
you're here for the committee. Let's do Article 6. So CPA funding modification for Richardson Olmsted School playground modifications. This is the placeholder one. I assume there's nothing since the draft came out this afternoon. We're just going to skip this one for tonight.
That's correct. The CPC and the school committee are each holding meetings tomorrow on this subject, and so language would be pending, forthcoming from the CPC at their meeting tomorrow night.
Okay. All right. So then, essentially, if I understand the articles as read, which is a big if, as we've seen for the last, as I said, 7 years, Articles 7 through 12 are all zoning and adjacent to zoning and planning committee items. Stephanie did send off, or Stephanie and Elizabeth, I think the two of you sent the full addendum, the supplement for the full zoning. I'm going to be completely honest. Some of this stuff is like trying to read like Viking runes for me. So we have this delightful preamble. We have an explanation. If anyone has questions about the deep dive into the supplemental stuff, or if you're significantly smarter than me and you've already read the supplements, God bless you. But for the most part, I think that in reading through these, I think that the explanations are relatively straightforward. If you want to go deeper, we absolutely can. Stephanie can, as we've seen, easily go deeper on this stuff. She has this essentially back of hand. So, Article 7. To see if the Town of Easton will vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 48 to amend the zoning map of the Town of Easton adopted in town meeting at a time and amended through May 20th, 24 by rezoning 388 Depot Street, map 38U, lot 17 from residential to business as printed in the supplement titled Zoning Amendments 235. This is a request for proposal issued for the sale of Center School for redevelopment of the site as a hub for community recreation consistent with the November 2022 town meeting vote authorizing the select board to dispose of the property for community or recreational facility uses. Did everyone get the Fieldhouse supplemental piece as well? So effectively, and Connor, the one question I had on this is that this is the proposal you received of the disposal of said property. Planning and Zoning Board is obviously putting and this is the base of my question, putting in a small commercial use zoning change for just this property within that area, and thus it has to be amended and approved.
So yes, the Fieldhouse presentation, while not the technical response to RFP, that was a presentation given publicly on October 7th by the respondents to the select board's RFP to sell the former center school. This article, as goes on in the explanation, is necessary for an indoor recreational facility. And if you folks will recall at town meeting 2 years ago, there was an amendment to the broader authorization to dispose of a property, to dispose of center school, that did two things. One was it said you need to carve off Yardley Rink and maintain it, which we have since done through permitting with the planning board. And the second was restricted for community center or recreation facility use. And at that time, it was zoned back to residential because recreation and community center uses could be done in a residential zone. However, upon further analysis, that's restricted to nonprofit. And so for a recreational facility that is commercial, it needs to be a business zone. So that's why this article is here. It matches the proposal. The select board in the summer, to see where the market was, did a very kind of low threshold request for letters of interest on, for folks, whether they were for-profit, nonprofit, individuals, to see what kinds of programs or building projects they would be interested in if this property were to be listed for sale. And the feedback was generally for this type of facility. And so that's what we would need to do for it to proceed.
The only question I have before I kick it off to everybody else is that there is in this, and I don't know if this is material to this article, but there is in this presentation an aspect of the Yardley Wood Rink, like you were saying, right? Preserving public access, allowing some level of parking. Is there any overlay issue with rezoning this with that adjacent? This is all essentially taken care of at once. There's nothing else that has to be opened up or any other concerns that would come out of that.
No, Yardley Rink is not touched by this rezoning because now Yardley Rink is its own parcel. We went through what's called an A&R process with the planning board where the town's engineers laid out, this is Yardley Rink, this is roughly a sliver of parking that we think should be preserved on that parcel, and we'll carve that off and keep it under town ownership, which was what the town meeting required. This rezoning to business is only applicable to the center school parcel, not to Yardley Rink.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions on 7?
Yeah, I do, and this is probably my inexperience here. This seems like a zoning issue and not a finance issue, so I'm not sure what we're being asked to approve.
So to be clear, you're not being asked to approve anything on any of these articles. Under the town charter, I don't have it in front of me. I can pull it up, but the finance committee.
You haven't memorized the town charter at this point?
Parts of it, but
headline tomorrow. Here it is.
The finance committee advises recommendations on all articles. I don't think the charter distinguishes, and so. Okay. So even though it is zoning, the finance committee has historically always taken a kind of yes, no, recommend or not recommend. And you know, there's obviously a downstream impact to the town's finances from zoning, potentially quite significant ones. And in this case, rezoning, there's a lot of other process that has to happen, right? I think that's really important in the event someone's watching this. Finance committee taking a recommendation or not doesn't change that. This still actually has to go back to the select board on the 21st for the select board to consider a contingent award of the RFP. Then the article has to pass town meeting for rezoning. A purchase and sale has to be renegotiated, and it would still need to go through permitting like anything else, through the zoning board of appeals, through conservation commission. If at the end of all of that, the proposal is built, there's obviously a meaningful new growth element here for a commercial property for the town's tax levy that currently is paid zero because it's a vacant municipal lot. So there is always an interconnectivity between the zoning and the town's financial posture.
Of course. Yeah, it's just in this instance, the financial side is down the road. So that's very helpful to me. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Robert, I saw you come off mute. Do you have something as well?
No, I was good. I was just, Connor gave a very good explanation and reason why the relationship between zoning and finance. This property will be RFP'd, Connor?
So the RFP has actually already been conducted. This is the same process that we went through. There's a couple ways you can do it, but with Monroe Hall, once we knew the schools would be vacated, we went to town meeting, got the declaration from voters that they're surplus, not needed, and permission to sell. We do the RFP based on the responses we got. In the case of Monroe Hall, the responsive bidder was Stonehill under the Dover Amendment. Zoning is not necessarily relevant. Had a different group had a proposal to purchase that and use it, we may have had to rezone that. In this case, we have the authority to put it out for bid. Town meeting put restrictions on community or recreation facilities. The bid that came back is business, so that's how we are here. But it would be a contingent approval from the select board ahead of town meeting, if that makes sense.
Hey, Connor, just understanding, I'm not sure it changes much, but if I understood you correctly, when this was originally decided, we said for recreational purposes, but because we put it out to the RFP, what then came back was an RFP for commercial development. And so we're basically coming back and saying, in order to proceed with that, all the requisite steps that you've already laid out, and nothing being decided, obviously, that fundamentally we have to change that zoning then. So that's what we're doing here is making that recommendation.
Yes and no. To be clear, this is consistent with the 2022 vote. The 2022 vote did two things at town meeting. One was it authorized the board to sell Center School as surplus property for purposes of redevelopment by a private purchaser for community center or recreation facilities. A second vote was changing it from municipal to residential, because residential at that time seemed to make sense because the surrounding area was residential and that zoning allowed indoor recreation and community center uses. That is restricted to only nonprofits doing recreation. I will acknowledge I was unaware of that at the time. We have gone through the actual process and received indoor recreation proposals. So that's what I want to make sure I'm being clear on, that is consistent with what we laid out as a potential reuse back in 2022. The difference is that the zoning says if it's commercial, it needs to be a business zone rather than residential.
Right. Yep. No, I follow you completely. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
My kid's thrilled. Can't wait for more fields. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, etc.? Also, Andrea, I don't think you're presenting on anything else tonight. I don't want to keep you on for the next hour as you listen to my dumb jokes for the evening. If there's nothing else you're commenting on, you can definitely take off. It is 7:45. Right? Go find
On the other
something.
hand, my dumb jokes are Delightful.
He'll send those to you though offline, so you don't have to stick around. All right, so was that J11? Who was that? That's 7. Any other questions on 7?
Motion to recommend Article 7 to Petro.
Second by
Second.
Jenkins.
I'm giving it to Robert on that one. Giving it to Robert.
Robert.
Ready to go. He's been off mute for the last 10 minutes, just in case. Bernardo.
Yes.
DiNapoli.
DiNapoli, yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Yes.
Diaz.
Yes, it's yes.
I am a yes. All right, that's 7. For 8 and 9, and I'm gonna read the explanation just because obviously we get into the mix of very specific zoning discussions. The articles are right here if anyone objects to that and wants to dive in. But we're on Article 8, zoning amendments, Section 235-14, accessory uses, 18 accessory structures, 28 off-street parking, 49 large-scale ground-mounted solar, 60 definitions. This is why I'm reading the explanation. Explanation: allowing small to mid-scale solar energy systems that generate more electric power than the amount needed for the average residential or commercial use will provide additional supply that can be redirected to the electric grid at large, in turn helping to decrease the use of fossil fuel energy generators, and is consistent with the town's intent to reduce its overall carbon emissions. I have questions, but I'm happy to pass the baton to whoever wants to do a quick overlay on this one. Stephanie, would that be you?
I'm sorry, when you say a quick overlay, are you,
Essentially,
so an
for those of us
little more information on what the,
my takeaway from most of these is that when we get into the real deep mix of like zoning amendments and planning amendments and things, is that there is the layer of things that Connor understands, and then there's a big gap between that and what I understand, and then an even bigger gap where we get to Mike DePietro.
Right.
But
You know it.
to summarize this effectively,
okay, so basically, as the explanation indicates, there right now, small to mid-scale solar energy generators as an accessory item are not a distinct allowed use within the residential, business, and industrial districts. And the board felt that they did not want, they wanted to be in compliance with the law that requires that towns have districts that allow for solar energy generators. And it was felt that by allowing these accessory units of a small to medium scale, again, would generate more electric power than the amount needed for the average residential or commercial use. Because it's an allowed use by right if it's for the amount of energy that's generated is consistent with what an average household would use.
that might be.
So this would allow a bit larger unit, but the zoning would also require that there be a higher level of setback requirement. So these units would need to be set back further from the side yards than your regular side yard setback for structures. It would require site plan review with the planning and zoning board. So it would be an as of right use, but with some oversight and further restrictions than just, your average garage or other accessory structure.
Got it. So effectively, this includes, if I were to say I have the average usage for a household is X. I want to put in enough solar to do X plus 20%, X plus 30%. That's is that not allowed under current bylaws, or is that just sort of disincentivized under current?
It's not an allowed use, so it's not a stated allowed use.
Got it. But if I did want to do that under this, and I wanted to make it something that was potentially much larger or ground mounted, which I think is a key piece here. Here's the in the inserted language, right? D, E, F, and G in the appendix. Here's that, as you said, the specific setbacks. It can't be of a significant size. If it is of a significant size, there's a separate, where did it say it? A separate special permit that has to go into it. So effectively, like if your next door neighbor decides they want to put in something like the clock farm in Easton, there's
Right,
other
that's a large scale. They can't do it there. We have a specific overlay district that actually satisfies the law, which requires 1% of your total land area be allow for the large scale mounted, and Easton adopted overlay districts several years ago that covered that.
Excellent. Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
There's a piece in here about parking canopies that I think is relatively straightforward in the addendum.
Yeah, and that really that just encourages the smaller scale. Again, a good use in a good location for solar energy generators.
And then if I understand the vast majority of like underneath -60, it's just vocabulary definitions. So
That's right. It's just right.
Okay. Thank you.
It looks like a lot more than what it is, but it is just changing the language to make sure it's consistent throughout the code.
100%. And this is why I ask for that exact type of explanation.
Okay, so
that I'm smart.
Yeah, usually I know what you're asking for.
No, you don't. No one
so I'm
knows.
sorry, I was a little.
No problem. No problem. So anyone else on Article 8 for questions, discussion, etc.?
Motion to recommend the article to Petra.
Seconded, Jenkins.
Someone's catching up. DiNardo.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
Napoli.
DiNapoli, yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Yes, yes.
I am a yes. Article 9, zoning amendment, section 235-51.1b, parentheses 1, Foundry Compact Neighborhood Zoning Overlay. To see if the Town of Easton will vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 48 to amend the section of the zoning bylaws of the Town of Easton adopted at town meeting March 27th, 1973, and amended through May 20th, 2024 to remove restrictions on the interior area of residential units as printed in the supplement. Explanation: this removes restrictions on interior areas of the residential units to comply with MGL Chapter 40A, which disallows zoning regulation or restrictions on the interior area of single-family residential buildings and is consistent with other sections of the zoning bylaw regulating single-family residential development. It does not change density or dimensional standards in the zone.
Okay, so about 5 years ago, the town adopted the Foundry Compact Neighborhood Overlay Zoning District. And that was intended to allow denser development in the Foundry area. And specifically, the old Foundry site and abutting properties was identified as that overlay district. As part of that zoning, it restricted the size of the dwelling, and a dwelling could either be a single family or a duplex, or even a triplex, but what's being built there now are single-family homes. The size of the unit was restricted to 1,800 square feet, and additionally, the bedroom count was restricted. So what this does is it does not increase the overall size of the building itself, but it does not exclude converting a basement to a finished room, a finished basement, and it does not restrict bedroom count, which is consistent with state law. State law does not allow the town to regulate the interior of a single family home.
Outside of the
So this is
gross
basically a housekeeping item where it wasn't contemplated that the 18,000 square feet would preclude a finished basement.
18,000 or 1,800?
1,800, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say
It's
that.
a single family.
I only said it that one time, right?
Yeah, I know,
Bob?
you're good, you're
Okay,
good, you're good.
just making sure.
We knew what you meant. So just to make sure I completely understand, I saw the amendment that does say this does not include basements, but the overall 1,800 square footage, that stays. It's just the interior. Essentially, you have an 1,800 square footage maximum, correct?
Right,
But the interior layout, have at it, right? It's not, you
Right.
have to have 2 bedroom. Well, obviously there's other codes and bylaw, like you have to have
Right.
this, that, and the other thing. But it's whatever that layout needs to look like, as long as it matches those codes, then yeah, you're off and running.
yes.
Any other questions on 9? Are we on 9? 9.
Motion to recommend Article 9, DePietro.
Second,
Seconded by
DiNapoli.
Jenkins.
I'm giving Christina that one. That was quick. She was good. Bernardo,
Yes.
DiNapoli,
DiNapoli, yes.
Olson,
Olson, yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Petro,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Yes, it's yes.
I am a yes. All right, on to 10. I'm going to be honest, this one I was slightly confused on, and the explanation is actually longer than the initial, so let's see. Article 10, zoning amendment, accessory dwelling units, section 235-44 and section 235-60. See if the town of Easton will vote pursuant to MGL chapter 40A to amend sections of the zoning bylaw of the town of Easton adopted at town meeting March 27, 1973, and amended through May 20, 2024 by amending the provisions regulating the development of accessory dwelling units consistent with state law as printed in said supplement. Before I read this 3-pager, Stephanie, do you want to do a summary of because I just feel like I read through this and went, huh? And, I'm real dumb, but you might be able to do this a little bit easier than me.
Okay, so an accessory dwelling unit, and in Easton, currently, the zoning calls it an in-law apartment. It is essentially a room added on to a house, a single-family dwelling that provides living accommodation separate from the main dwelling unit. So it has its own entrance, it has its own bathroom, it has its own kitchen facilities. And it provides living space. Generally, a lot of people build these for either their parents, or the parents will add these on to their house for their children, with the understanding that as the parents age, there'll be a swap, that the children will move into the main house and the parents will live in the apartment. They can also provide housing for relatives, or a live-in nanny, or someone else. The state, recognizing that these accessory dwelling units can provide additional housing opportunities for people, passed regulation in June that changed the Chapter 48, the Zoning Act, and does not allow communities to restrict accessory dwelling units to a certain size or by family member or relationship. And in Easton, and they don't restrict the unit to be either attached or within the interior of the existing dwelling unit. So as I mentioned just a minute ago, Easton allows these as in-law apartments. There is a requirement that the primary homeowner has to live in the house. The owner of the dwelling unit, the primary dwelling unit, must live in the house and remain there, and that no more than a certain number of the folks living in the accessory dwelling unit must be related to the property owner. It also, in Easton, we restrict the size to 25% of the total gross floor space of the primary dwelling unit, or 900 square feet, whichever is less. The state law now allows up to 50% of the gross living area, or 900 square feet, whichever is less. And again, Easton, it has to be attached or part of the interior of the existing dwelling unit. Under the state, it can be detached, it can be within the structure, or it can be a standalone unit. So the changes here propose that the minimum be increased to 50% to match what the state law now states and allows, or 900 square feet. It also allows for an additional size over the 900 square feet by special permit. So under the state, you can't, if it's a minimum of 50% or the 900, whichever's less, you can't require it by special permit. But Easton, this bylaw is proposing that you could go over the minimum amount with a special permit. It also proposes that if you're building out your accessory dwelling unit atop of a garage, that you can do so by right.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what it does. And that the unit can be detached or an attached structure within.
The only question I had, which is in the definition section,
Yeah.
is around the definition of essentially family. And so tell me if I'm barking up the wrong tree here, but the fact that it's an accessory dwelling unit, there's still an associated connection to the primary house, right? The primary dwelling unit. But does the line that says, you know, one or more persons, including etc., occupying a dwelling unit, living as a single nonprofit household or nonprofit housekeeping unit, does that have, I don't know if I'm reading it wrong, but does that mean that this essentially in-law apartment is not a for-profit, like I can't rent this out on Airbnb, or does this still have the connection to the primary owners of the main dwelling? Like, does
The
it have?
primary, it does not require that the primary, that the owner of the primary dwelling unit live within the structure.
Okay.
Or that the dwelling unit itself, the accessory dwelling unit, that those be family members.
Okay.
And the definition of a family is being changed, and this is in line with fair housing law.
Okay, that's
So
okay.
you can't discriminate against families or people living together as a unit.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions on number 10? And Stephanie, thank you so much, because I literally read this 3 times and I was like, I think I got it, but that was very well done.
Stephanie, other than allowing for greater than 900 by special permit, is there anything that differs from the state law? Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
Motion to recommend to Petra.
Seconded by Jenkins.
She left, Robert. I think she disconnected when she got in the car. So we're going to give that one to you, but it's a hollow victory. It's a hollow victory. DiNardo.
Bernardo's yes. Thank you for the explanation.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. DiNapoli has departed. Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
I wonder if she's trying to get back in now that I'm thinking about it. DePietro.
Yes.
There she is. Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Yes, yes.
I am a yes. All right, so that's 10. Christina, if you can hear me, I did promote you. I don't know that it went through. I'll try one more time. Article 11, stormwater management. To see if the Town of Easton will vote to amend Section 200 Stormwater Management of the Code of the Town of Easton, adopted at town meeting, I assume, May 17, 2021, as printed in the supplement titled Town of Easton General Code Amendment, Section 200 Stormwater Management. I'm going to read this one because this one makes sense to me. Explanation. This amendment brings the town's stormwater management bylaw into full compliance with the requirements of the 2016 National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPEDS, I'm using that, General Permit for Stormwater Sewer Systems in Massachusetts by specifically establishing administrative procedures for construction and post-construction period stormwater management permitting. The procedures established in this amendment are already incorporated in the permitting processes undertaken by the Planning and Zoning Board and Conservation Commission and do not add additional permitting requirements or reviews to construction projects. The town voted at town meeting on May 17th, 2021 to adopt Section 200 stormwater management, which did not specifically establish administrative procedures for construction and post-construction period stormwater management permitting. At the time, it was believed since the required administrative procedures were incorporated into other permitting processes of the Planning Board and Conservation Commission that also establishing these administrative procedures in Section 200 of the town's bylaws was not required. Subsequent to adoption of Section 200, the town was notified by the United States EPA this was not sufficient, and the administrative procedures needed to be established within the specific stormwater management bylaw. As noted earlier, this does not add additional permitting requirements, nor change the existing permitting requirements for construction projects that meet the standard for stormwater management compliance. I just want to call out that that is the greatest single explanation of any of these warrant articles I've ever read. I was like, got it, nailed it. It flows well. It's delightful. So kudos to whoever put that together. Stephanie, if that was you, pat on the back. That's delight. Does anyone have any questions on 11? I just wanted to crow about how good that was done. See, look, it's so well crafted that literally there's not even people are like, I can't even ask a question.
I have to say, we tried very hard to make the others that
Those aren't your fault. Those are my fault for being dumb. This one,
no.
It's really well written, so it's totally okay. It's a different scenario.
Motion to recommend to Petro.
Seconded, Jenkins.
Alrighty, DiNardo.
Yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Yes is yes.
I am a yes. On to 12. The final one, people. We've made it. Article 12, Public Way Acquisition Victory Lane. To see if the town will accept, acquire by gift, purchase, take by eminent domain, or otherwise acquire Victory Lane as a public way in any, I cannot pronounce, appurtenant easements thereto, as laid out by the Select Board, as shown on the plan entitled Roadway As Built and Acceptance Plan of Land, Victory Lane, Easton, Mass. Prepared by Klim's Land Servicing Incorporated, dated September 6, 2024, copy of which is on file in the office of the town clerk. And further, that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to acquire by gift, purchase, take by eminent domain, or otherwise easements in any land necessary for laying out and acceptance of said way, and any appurtenant drainage, am I saying that right? Utility or other easements related to said way, and or to accept grants thereof. And further, to authorize the Select Board and other applicable Town of Easton boards, that's us, and personnel to take all related actions necessary or appropriate to accomplish the purposes of this article, or take any other action related thereto. Explanation: Victory Lane is a 50-foot wide right-of-way providing access to 6 developed residential lots in the Victory Estates subdivision approved by the Planning and Zoning Board on April 30th, 2012, with the expectation the road, Victory Lane, would be accepted by the town upon completion. The road was completed by the town after the developer defaulted on its obligation to do so, and the road is now ready for acceptance by the town. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
I was just gonna have a question. Why did it take us so long to accept it? But the explanation tells you the developer
See?
default.
These explanations are just, they're killing it tonight.
Let me ask
one question, kind of following up on your question though. The vote was 2012. When was the default? Was that significantly more recent?
It was, oh yes, they, so what happened is that the initial developer built out the road almost to completion. And, you know, to the point where they have the base course down, the base layer of pavement, and developed 2 of the lots, I think, and then sold the project to another developer who developed the other 3 lots and then walked away from the project. And we learned this when they came, the developer that bought the development and walked away was trying to take claim to the cash surety that was deposited by the original. But the road wasn't finished.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we talked and you can't get the money, the road needs to be finished, and he just walked away from it. So that was around 2018, 2019, and we worked on it for a couple of years, trying to get either he or the original developer to complete the road. It was clear they were not going to do that. And we took the surety, and DPW worked this into their pavement management plan, finished the road so that the residents could have the town accept the road.
For all the kids watching at home, that's why you have a surety. There it is right there. There's your backing plan. Awesome. Thank you for that. Any other questions on 12?
Is there any risk, any foreseeable risk anyhow, with accepting this? Just because there seems to have been a, I'm not sure I'm using, I've got the right vocabulary, but it.
Contentious.
Yeah, is basically, do we have title? If title is the right word, I don't think it is.
So clean title, that is why this particular one is authorizing the select board to acquire by gift, purchase, or take by eminent domain. If you need to take it by eminent domain, it clears out the title.
I understand, but
and that's shorthand. That's not. But this was the recommendation of town council.
Yeah, and it all makes sense to me. I'm just trying to be thorough.
Oh,
the eminent domain carries with it a compensation requirement, and so I just want to make sure. Do we have any? Is there any risks, any guidance or anything that's coming from them that says, "Hey, we're going to resist this and be a pain in the butt"?
The residents are all agreeable.
I would think so.
And the developer, I had contacted the one that defaulted, and he was ready to sign the deed. And it was town council that found that actually some of the residents own to the middle of the road, and this would allow to take it and clear that. And they are all agreeable. I mean, I've had that conversation ahead of time, anticipating that it would either be a problem or that it would be a question.
Great. Thank you so much. That puts my heart at ease.
So let me ask, just to follow up with Mike's, I think his train of thought there, who's been taking care of this road since nobody pretty much?
The residents.
The residents, okay. Okay.
Any other questions for Article 12?
Motion to recommend, DePietro.
Seconded by Jenkins.
DiNardo.
Yes.
Olson. Did we lose Olson? Might have lost Jay. Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
I wonder if he's sitting in the participant queue. No, and I don't think Christina can rejoin. Where was I? Lamb, yes. DePietro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Yes is yes.
Yes. We still get quorum, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah. That's 12.
I was being smart enough not to ask if we still had quorum, but
I know I've said it multiple times. I'm real dumb. Jay's coming back anyway. Someone tripped on the server, I think. Okay, so that is the warrant articles. So by my estimation, the ones we're still missing on, I've lost my page again. We voted on everything except for 6 because it's the placeholder. Number 2 because there's nothing in number 2 as of yet. Is that it? Did we vote on everything else? Yeah. No, wait. There's one other one.
oh,
Transfer to stabilization, bills from prior fiscal, amend budget we did, capital we did, Swift we did, yeah, 6 skip, zoning we, yeah, all right. I'm not gonna argue. Welcome back, Jay. All right. So with that, that's the warrant articles we have to vote on for the evening, as we've done many a time before. This is your pre-town meeting warning that we will definitely come back together for that everyone's favorite meeting, which is a 10-minute last article or two, if there's bills to be paid, and number 6 to finalize our considerations on that. That will not be printed in the article because the printing is going out. Connor, keep me honest, I think at the end of next week, but we can then obviously have that as my statement that we did recommend or did not recommend for the town meeting itself. With that, we only have one other piece of business other than committee member and community member comments. For those of you who have joined us tonight, is there anything else you'd like to share or any other comments you have before we let you go for the rest of the evening? Smart. Why belabor it? All right. Thank you all. You guys can definitely feel free to drop off or hang out. It is the fun meeting, so it's up to you.
Good night.
Good night, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Well
us.
said, Stephanie. Well said. Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you at town meeting.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.
All right. It's just us, ECAT, and Stacy, our awesome meeting minute guru. So with that, let's go to meeting minutes. I forwarded the meeting minutes back to you guys a few minutes ago, just in case you guys did not get them when I sent them before, because God knows if they went through with my doodle initial outreach. But before we get into it, if anyone has any edits or changes, I only have one. And Stacy, if you can hear me, this was the minute or the meeting for May 20th. We do have it listed as May 29th in the title bar, as opposed to May 20th. This is a May 20th meeting, so that edit can go in. Other than that, I'm good on everything else. Does anyone else have any edits to add? And just for the record, so we're all on the same page, changes that have to happen after the fact, or if you were not at this meeting and you're like, oh, I can't possibly vote on this, just to reiterate, this is just acceptance of the meeting minutes into the filing for our committee. So this is not, I am signing off on the accuracy of said meeting minutes. This is just incorporating them into our backend files. Any other questions?
Accept the meeting minutes to Petro.
Do I have a second?
Second by Jenkins.
DiNardo.
Yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Diaz.
Yes.
I am a yes. Guys, we did it. Another meeting in the books. Before Mike cuts me off and says adjourn, just as a housekeeping meeting. So we do have the upcoming November 18th meeting for a special town meeting. As per usual, we are required to sit in the front. We have a guest. Hi. Oh no, stay. It's so interesting and civic minded. Yay. Hi. If you can attend, absolutely please do. We will need a quorum for the meeting ahead of time. Typical aim is to do that like an hour before town meeting, 30 minutes before town meeting, whatever that is. I will finalize all of that if we have the data from this earlier. If we can do it before town meeting, we will. If they get me the final numbers and everything else, we'll take care of it. If not, plan ahead for that, for those of you that are going to be around. Does anyone know if they're not going to be in town for that already? In fact, don't tell me yet, because then if someone's like, oh, I know who's out of town, and they kick your door in, I'm going to feel responsible. So we'll do that offline. But November 18th, write it down. I've had a lot of coffee today. November 18th, write it down. Any other comments, concerns, questions, thoughts before we let you guys go?
Motion to adjourn to Petro.
Do I have a second?
Second. Jenkins.
Oh, Shireen got in there. That's everybody's favorite motion, guys. DiNardo.
Yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Petro.
Yes.
Jenkins.
Jenkins, yes.
Stunning Vice Chair Diaz.
Yes.
Not even a smile. This is what working in government does to you. There it is. And Helen is yes. Good night, everybody. We did it in record time. It's 8:20. We killed it. Goodbye. I'll see you guys all soon. Brian, I'll see you on the soccer field, and we'll see each other at town meeting.
10:30
guys.
Saturday morning.
See ya.